Hello, my name is Bradley and I'm your host of The Internal Game. So we took the poll yesterday about which video you guys wanted to see, and Inner Conversations won. In all honesty, I could link the becoming magnetic and no contact situations into this video by Inner Conversations alone, but I'm not going to. I'll just make a couple more videos about those things and we'll just keep doing stuff like this, maybe, right? Anyway, Inner Conversations was made, just like that term, made famous by Neville Goddard. And he believed that your inner conversations is dictating your whole world. And like your external world is just your inner conversations pushed out, right? Everyone is yourself pushed out. Everything is yourself pushed out. So on this channel, I always try to remind you guys of a few things that are extremely important. And if you can grasp these, you can take massive control over your life. One is that imagination creates reality, right? And state of being is king. Like the new story is the true story. You start telling yourself a new story, you don't go against it, it has to take shape outside. And that's from the belief that inside first, outside secondary. This is the real life. This is real life right here. That is a projection of real life in here, not the other way around. And if you actually can get this grasp, then that's going to stop or really put a limit on your reactivity, on your buying into stuff out there, on your believing stuff that you see out there and keeping it at play. Like that's just going to drop all that. If you really grasp the fact that like inside first, outside secondary. So your inner conversations, I get the word conversation is just like, maybe I'm talking to somebody in my head. And like, it's all of it. Because really, there is no others, right? And everything is connected. We are not separate. That's another thing you should really grasp, that everything is connected. Nothing is separate from you. No person, no thing is separate from you. Hence why I could throw in the no contact situation there, right? And really, what you say and what you're thinking in here about yourself and about the world is also going to be reflected back. You could probably throw in, you could just tell yourself that you're magnetic now, right? You could probably do that in there too, right? Anyway, so the conversation that you're actually having internally, or inner conversation, is not with anybody externally. And truth be told, even when you are conversing with somebody externally, you're still talking to you, because everyone's only showing up as a reflection of you. Whether that be the fears and doubts that you have, whether that be the security and the abundance that you have, whether that be like, it doesn't matter how whatever you got going on internally, whatever inner conversations you're having moment to moment, it's showing up in people, circumstances, the bank account, all that stuff. So when you're doing the dishes, I used to do this one, I've talked about this many times in videos way back in the day. When you're doing the dishes, or like walking around, driving your car, and you're arguing with somebody in your head, you remember that email that person at work sent you, and you were professional back, but you spent like 6-7 hours, like all day, or just when you thought about it, like just kind of feeding off that resentment, and just like, oh, I should have said this, and who is he thinking? That, again, is an inner conversation with somebody there, but you're actually having it with yourself, right? So you're actually having an inner conversation with you about person who's then going to reflect this back to you. So, because you're calling it forth in imagination, because remember, this is real first, outside secondary. So that's unfavorable. And I want you guys to get this too, is that like, you're gonna make the change when you're done. Like when you're actually fed up with that's why I say it a lot, the heartache, the turmoil, the troubles that you're finding yourself in. Like when you're actually done, you will. Like when I finally quit drinking, you know why I did it? Because I was like, I was done. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I had all these reasons as to why, like, no, you don't understand. Like, I just have to keep drinking. And like, I'm this way, I'm that way. And really, it's like, I quit because I got tired. The consequences were finally too much. I was tired of being sick and tired, right? And it's the same thing in everyone else's life as far as like the turmoil and the chaos that they're going through with their inner conversations and how they're seeing the world. you will stop when you're ready, because if not, you're going to keep doing it. And it's because of these things that I've learned along the way up until this moment right here, is that we become addicted to our emotions. We become addicted to feeling certain way, and the ego is the identity of, you guessed it, being right, being prideful. So when you're arguing with people in your head, and you've been doing it over and over again, you keep seeing experiences where like, this is just reflected back to you. You keep having a problem with this person, keep having a problem with this person keeps doing that. All these others, people, right, quote unquote others, that are reflecting back you is because of the conversations and the expectations, pretty much by your inner conversations that you're having inside, because you're telling a story about what you say you don't want to happen, but you're kind of feeding off of it. So when you're actually done, you'll make the change. And I truly believe this, and I mean this. It's like, I get it, but like, you have to really be done. Because like Neville said it, like, you have to be careful. And it's true. You have to be careful of, like, moment to moment, what you're saying inside. Like, what are your inner conversations about? What are you talking to yourself about? What are you thinking to yourself about all day long? Because your outside world is a reflection of this. And like even Neville said with this too, which I agree with, even if you have an end game, like I'm living in the end, here I am now. If your inner conversations go against that, you're not going to see it, because you're not really living in the end, right? Like, you're saying like, this is what I want, this, like, I'm this now, and then your inner conversations are against that, you're not going to see it. But if you have an end game and you start having inner conversations, like creating meaning and telling cool stories, and like pretending that you're talking to your friend, and your friend's calling you back like, holy shit, dude, you're so successful now, and you're like playing this game. Or, oh my God, you and that person, like, dude, she seems like she's so obsessed with you, or he seems like he's so obsessed with you. Like, you're pretending that you're having these conversations with someone else when it's just you talking to you, right? It's always just you and you. Then then that inner conversation is going to be reflected out. So the idea is to find your end game. You want person, you want money, you want success, whatever. Find your end game, and then align your inner conversations with these, or with the end game. Let me give you an example of, off the top of the head, of like the opposite, like something that you don't want, but an inner conversation that aligns with this thing that you thought was happening, and how you ended up living in the end, and why it happened so fast, right? So I was talking to somebody, and they had brought in a 3P in their relationship. And I was like, were you sitting there all day affirming that this is what this person was doing? She's like, no. I'm like, of course you weren't. Of course you weren't. Like, you weren't just sitting there like affirming like a banshee all day long that this person was doing that. You were just talking to yourself. Like, you got an idea that this is what you thought he was doing off of something with his phone. It's what you thought. And because of your self-concept, thinking that that could happen to you, that you weren't good enough, all these things, that's why self-concept is important. But because of this, you all of a sudden were like, okay, I think this is happening. And then you went on your little investigation. These are inner conversations, people, because your thought is inner conversation. This is all just how you're talking to yourself internally. And you're creating meaning with your inner conversations, right? Like, yeah, he actually didn't text back yesterday, and is it that girl that he works with? And I was like, you just started creating a story, which you're telling a story, which is a conversation that you're having with yourself internally, inner conversation. You're creating a story. Don't complicate this, people. You're creating a story, talking to yourself about this is like in alignment with what you think was happening. When really all that shit was meaningless, and if you would have started talking differently, or like, oh, well, he didn't text back because he's working, he's busy, but man, that guy loves me. Like anything other than what she was searching for, because she was searching for it, because the brain always likes to prove itself right. Because it likes to be right. That's why you're in these positions. And it's looking for this reason, and it's finding these things, and the whole time you're like talking to yourself, getting yourself all riled up. And then eventually you're like, then it comes into play because you got your inner conversation, and because you had lived in the end of what was happening. You said, I know he's doing that. I can prove it. And you started finding this meaning, and you created a meaning off of everything that you saw that was in alignment with that, and that's why it happened so damn fast. And then when it happened, you said, I knew it, and then you called me and said, how do I get my person back? Well, number one, you don't ever need to do that shit again. So like, it's real simple. You don't have to complicate it. Inner conversation is your thoughts. It's what you're saying. It's who you're talking to in your head. Like, even if you're pretending that you're talking to somebody, you're still talking to you. There are no others. Nothing is separate from you. And then they just reflect that back. Everyone is yourself pushed out. Your inner conversation is about money, about how like, it doesn't ever find you, or like, man, it's always this hard. That is then reflected back to you. And it's not complicated, people. You have to tell a different story. You have to change your inner conversations to change your life. Like, pick your end. What's your end? You want SP? Is that what you want? What's your end? You want money? Is that what you want? What's your end? You want to boss up in every area of your life? Is that what you want? Doesn't matter, because like anytime you think about that said situation, you need to be having a conversation in your, like, with yourself, or even with, you know, the illusion of SP in your head of like, oh, well, yeah, like when I talked to him today, it was so nice. Yeah, he was so understanding and loving, and I don't care if you talk to him or not. You tell yourself that you did, and then you have a good inner conversation about it. You can even start talking to him right now. There's no contact situation. Looks like I got into it anyway, didn't I? There's no contact situation. We're all connected. Everything is connected. We're not separate. No one's separate from you. You tell the story with your inner conversation to yourself about how things are right now in alignment. And then whatever you see, you keep talking to yourself in your inner conversations about why that's in alignment with your end. It is not that complicated. You do need to be aware of what you're telling yourself all day long, what you're thinking all day long. You don't have to check every single thought. But if you're feeling like shit, you're probably not talking too well. You're probably not having the greatest inner conversations in alignment with what it is that you think that you want. If I were you, I would have an inner conversation for a little while about how great I was, and about how easy things were for me, and about how I just catch on to things so fast, and how I'm the best and I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, because I am everything kind of thing. I would have a little bit of fun, and then when SP popped up, I'll think about that, and I'd have inner conversations with myself, with her, him, whatever you're doing, in a loving, honorable, harmonious fashion. I wouldn't argue with them in my head. I wouldn't think about the past in my head, about like what they did, what that meant. Like, drop it. But you do need to come to this realization that like, somewhere, somehow, if you keep telling this old story, you keep getting upset, you keep arguing with people in your head, at some point you need to come to this realization that like somewhere you are getting your rocks off doing this, and that it feels good. You have, like, I don't care how much pleasure it brings you. If you want something different, if you truly want something different, you have to drop that, and you have to start changing your inner conversations in alignment with this new said end result desire. And that's pretty much it. Change the way you're not separate from anybody. You're not separate from anything. How you're explaining things with your inner conversations to yourself. You're only talking with you. Even in the external, you're still only talking with you. No need to trip, like I always say. You want something different, you got to be something different. You want something different, you got to talk to yourself differently. You got to talk about things differently, internally. Have different inner conversations and change your life. That's it. But like, don't make it complicated. It's like, oh, do I have to have like, pretending that there's a conversation with this person? It's whatever you say. Like, it's just whatever you're doing internally all the time. That's a conversation that you're having with yourself. Yeah, have some fun, dude. Have an awesome conversation with the SP. Start talking to money as if you guys have always been fucking close and that you guys just get along and it always finds you and you always find it and like you guys just have the best relationship ever. Like, the idea of money is the same thing as the idea of anything else. You're just talking, like you're talking about it, talking to it all the time, anytime you're talking in here. And that determines what happens out there. So that's it. Don't complicate it. The inner conversation is what you're doing within yourself, what you're saying, what you're thinking, whether that be with what you think is somebody else or not. It doesn't matter. Like, whatever you're doing internally is reflected back out there. You need to align it with, you need to tell the story in alignment. Have inner conversations in alignment with the end game. That's it. Oh, you're a successful business owner now? That's what you want? You're a successful business owner? Okay, I'm a successful business owner. How does that person talk to himself? How does that like, you just go around giving meaning in your inner conversations in alignment with that. Oh, wow, he's got a bunch of opportunities. Like, people want to work with me. It's amazing. I don't care if you don't even have an LLC. I don't care. I don't give none of that stuff. You talk your way into it. You think your way into it. You have conversations with yourself, because that's the only person you've ever had a conversation with. Your way into it. That's all I got. I will see you guys in the next video.